Yes, guys, what's going on? Welcome to AdamMcKola TV. I am Adam, back with another video. It's the mid-winter break. Winter? It's February. I know it's still cold and we've got a storm and all that going on in Britain, but it's a strange time to have a mid-winter break, but we do have it, and because of that, there hasn't been much content on the channel, and I've been thinking, what can I do today? What can I do? Saw you guys chucking loads of questions at me. A lot of them are questions that I've already answered on Q&As, or we can leave for another time. But I was thinking, what's best to do in the midwinter break, in the mid-season break? Then a mid-season report to evaluate where Manchester United currently are at, what we've done well, what we've done badly, how the players are performing, how the results have been, what the manager's been doing right or wrong, etc, etc, looking at the new signings and all that good stuff. And by the end of today's show, I'll be giving you my final grade for Manchester United season so far, obviously where we can improve and hopefully bump that grade up, and of course where possibly we could see that grade coming down in the remainder of the season. So we'll be looking at loads of things going on at Manchester United in the next half an hour, 35-40 minutes of this show. And remember, while we're live, it's interactive as well, so I'll be getting your grades and your evaluations of Manchester United's season so far and where you think we've been going right or wrong. Currently we sit 8th in the Premier League. We're in the 5th round of the FA Cup with a game coming up against Derby County away from home, an opportunity to get into the last 8 of the FA Cup, which is obviously a big chance for Manchester United as well. We got knocked out of the semi-finals of the League Cup, obviously against Manchester City. Victory in the away leg, but that home leg really did cost us. And we're into the last 32 of the Europa League, coming up against Club Brugge, a team that would be expected to beat, a team that would be hoping to go through against, but we've still got to play that tie and hopefully get through to the last 16 of the Europa League. So when you look at the way things have been going in terms of where we lie in competitions, getting to the semi-finals of the League Cup, okay, going out against Manchester City, you probably could have seen that happening even on a good day. Still in the FA Cup, still in the Europa League, and 8th in the Premier League, but very close to the top 4. Now, if you would have said that at the start of the season, that's where we'd be right now, you would have thought, okay, that is fair enough. But there are some mitigating factors to United's season so far, and there are some areas where we could have been doing better in. Firstly, let's look at performances. Let's look at performances for Manchester United, because they clearly, haven't been great consistently. Again, a problem that we're going to have, and we have had for a long time. Consistency in this club hasn't quite been there. Now, for various reasons, that is, whether you're looking at inconsistency in terms of performance from players. We've got a very young squad. We've got a very thin squad, so players get tired very quickly. In terms of we haven't got the opportunity to rotate. We haven't got the opportunity to challenge players in terms of, in most positions, we've only got one player or one key player. We haven't got many other players in terms of, having multiple options in the 9 position, multiple options in the right wing position, multiple options in the left wing position. We've seen with one injury to Martial, one injury to Marcus Rashford, one injury to Paul Pogba, our midfield or our front line is ruined. So we've obviously got a very, very thin squad, and that has affected performances. But also, when you're looking at it and you're thinking of the performances, some of the results, and again, we're kind of falling into that second topic, the results, have been very good in games where you wouldn't expect them to be, or you would have thought we would have trouble against the bigger teams, against those teams above us. When you're looking at the likes of Chelsea, City, we obviously got battered by Liverpool away from home, but we drew with them at home. Spurs, we've beaten them. Like, you look at all the teams above us, we have got good results against them, apart from 1 or 2, the Arsenal away defeat, and of course the Liverpool away defeat. So in those games against teams that are in and around us in the table, obviously Arsenal ain't above us, but in and around us, we've been able to get the results. It's been those games, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Watford away, all those kind of games, Aston Villa, Everton at home, where we've dropped points and haven't been able to get the result. Now you look at those performances, and the performances haven't been good enough. But why? I think they come down to a number of reasons. They come down to Again, inconsistency in terms of players. Quality of players just quite frankly isn't good enough once we get those injuries. The manager has to take some responsibility as well for what he's been doing in those games, maybe selection, maybe tactics, because what we've seen a lot as well is that we haven't quite learnt from our mistakes. We've made a lot of the same mistakes over and over again in terms of, the teams at home at Old Trafford that tend to sit in and soak up a little bit of pressure. We've allowed them to do that far too easily, and we haven't been able to break these teams down, yet we always seem to go with the same style, the same formation. Surely we should be working with something on the training field. Surely we should be doing that. Now you'd argue if we had Pogba, if we had McTominay, if we had Rashford for the whole season, Martial, if we signed Bruno Fernandes in the summer, instead of in the January transfer window, we wouldn't have had those issues. But the facts are that we did. And I think they came down to a number of reasons. Like, it would have been a lot easier to judge Ole's job if he had, a better squad. But at the same time, you have to do well with what you've got. And that Marcus Rashford injury, ultimately, or that Pogba injury, ultimately, could cost Ole his job when we come to the end of the season. Because that's how crucial those injuries have been. I remember discussing it with Gary Neville and everyone at the start of the season. And I'm saying, letting Herrera go, letting Sanchez go, letting Lukaku go, letting all these guys go, that isn't a major problem. That isn't a major problem. Replacing them is something that we had to do, and we didn't do it. And there was the issue, and it always came back to haunt us, and it has done ever since. But nevertheless, we should have been getting better results. When we come up against Villa, Everton, Sheffield United, Watford, you can't say we didn't have a better team than them. So why weren't we getting the results? It comes down to consistency and performance of players, but also, I believe, comes down to the manager. So when you're looking at performances, you can be unlucky in some games and play well and not win. But I can't remember many of those games for Manchester United, to be totally honest with you. I really can't. But then there's been some very, very good performances as well. Manchester City away from home, Chelsea at home, Chelsea away in the Cup, Manchester City away in the League Cup. Of course, the home game was disastrous. So there have been some in there, Tottenham at home. There have been some very, very good performances in there, but not enough of them and not consistently enough as well, which has been a major issue for Manchester United. We need to be better in terms of our football as well. And that's something I think Ole has to work on. You can give him the excuses for, you can give him the excuses for not having players, injuries affecting us. You can't give him excuses for tactics, style of play, and all that kind of thing. He's the manager. He has to be responsible for that. And ultimately, he has to be responsible for getting results. Because when you look at a lot of those games where we've dropped results, dropped points, Sheffield United 3-2 up, do we manage that game better? See the game out? Quite possibly. Yes, he's taking it from 2-0 to 3-2 and all that. But if we manage that game better, do we get it out and get a result? Crystal Palace at home, Villa at home, Everton at home. A lot of games here where if we perform better, if we have a different tactics, different setup, maybe we get a better result. I also feel there's been times where the selection hasn't quite been there. There's maybe been an opportunity, Angel Gomez, or give someone an opportunity in the number 10 position. Maybe Mata should have been playing more and hasn't been, but we've not been doing that. So there are things where I can see complaints coming towards the manager. But in terms of performances and results, I'd have to say they have been very, very inconsistent. And you look at grading them, if we're doing a grade for each of these categories, you're looking at around a D minus. Because yes, you have some of those results which are A, Bs against City and Spurs and all those kind of things. But there's far too many results that are dragging that grade down. And you'd be looking to ultimately fall upon a C or a D kind of grading for that. But I'd say closer to a D. Same with the manager. Same with the players. That's where they're all kind of rating really. I'm going to get some of your comments on things as well. I want to know how you guys are feeling at the moment in this season. How are you guys feeling about the performances, the results, the tactics? What has been the exact issue for you this season? So get your comments in. get your super chats in, get sharing the video, get liking, etc., etc. MS says sometimes Ali leaves it too late to switch up tactics during games. That has been one of my criticisms of him as well. D James says that's exactly what happens when they come back last versus Chelsea. Sorry, I didn't get that one. Expecting Ali to come good is like expecting to get a first at uni, but Pam never finished the comment, so we'll be left on that one. Knocked out by Wolfsburg, CSK, PSV in the Champions League, then by Liverpool in the Europa League. What's this all about? Yeah, not too sure. I know that's some of the teams have lost to in Europe and stuff over the years, but not for Ollie. So can you get some comments in there? Very hard to find any positives in our worst season for 30 years, says Jack. Just want the season to end now so we can start again in the summer, says JM Beer. He's out of his depth saying the right things to the press, grade E for Ollie, but hopefully the players will help him from now on, says Glenn. Mourinho didn't have backing from the board. I don't think any managers had the full proper backing of the board in terms of sufficient backing. Yes, you could argue Mourinho had the money in terms of, he spent a fair bit on players, but also we didn't get rid of players that he maybe would have wanted to get rid of. We didn't bring in some other players that he maybe would have brought in. In the season we finished second, we didn't sign a centre-half that we so clearly needed. So you can see, parts where Mourinho, yes, he rightly sacked at the end, you could say, and be correct in that, I think, but there were times where he wasn't backed by the board, and if he was supported a little bit more, maybe he wouldn't have cracked up as quickly as he did, and maybe would have got a little bit better results as well. You could also argue with that with Moyes. Van Gaal maybe less so, but the way he was treated towards the end was disgraceful. And you could definitely argue that with Solskjaer. When you look at the summer, and we'll look at new signings now when we're talking about players. When we look at the summer, you look at the signings that we made. I think Daniel James, decent squad player. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, future right back, has been very good this season for us. Places where he can improve, but it's his first season at Man United, so you have to give him a little bit of slack, and I think he's done well with that. He looks unflustered by the pressure anyway. Harry Maguire's obviously come in, got the armband as well. You're looking at the signings that we've made. Bruno Fernandes, Odion Igalo was obviously a short-term signing that we've made. But if you look at the signings that we've made, they've actually not been too bad. They're the signings that we've needed. So all his signings haven't been the issue. The problem's been when Alexis Sanchez, when Romelu Lukaku, when Fellaini, when Herrera, when all these players left, replacements didn't come in for them. Now you could argue Sanchez was replaced by Greenwood, and Greenwood's already doubled his tally in terms of scoring goals, and I think that's one area where Ollie deserves credit as well, in terms of giving him the chance, giving Mason Greenwood the opportunity, giving the likes of Brandon Williams the opportunity to come through and break through. Axel Tuanzebe, if he hadn't picked up that injury, I'm sure he would have been used more as well. And if you look at those kind of things, Ollie's done well in that kind of aspect, giving those players a chance in the absence of those signings that have left. But ultimately, we didn't replace them sufficiently enough, whether that was from within, with younger players from the academy, or with signings, we didn't replace them enough. And now if you look, Daniel James made a fantastic start to the season. Got 4 goals, couple of assists, I believe. He's had a massive dip recently. Now it's down to fatigue, maybe pressure, maybe everything's just catching up with him a little bit, and he needs a little bit of a rest, taken out of the firing line a little bit. Yes, he's of the age where you'd expect a little bit more. He's kind of like Rashford's and Martial's age. You want to start to see them knock him down and getting consistency now. But you look at him and you feel sorry for him a little bit as well. He needs to be rested a little bit. You've seen what happened with Marcus Rashford picking up the injury, and the squad's got a lot of holes in it still, and we've suffered for that. We've been relying on the likes of Pereira, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata in that creative position. I don't think they've got many assists between them. Bruno Fernandes, who's been on, obviously we've signed him now, but when he was at Sporting, he got more goals and assists than all 3 of them put together. So it shows you we haven't had the players in some positions. But he has, the likes of Mason Greenwood. They'll be very, very thankful to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the long-term future, like the same way Marcus Rashford speaks about Louis van Gaal. So there has been positives in terms of the players, negatives in terms of the squad that have been out of Ollie's hands, but it's a mixture as well. You look at, I know Dylan Levitt, James Garner have been injured more recently. Could we have used them a little bit more? You don't want to be chucking them in the deep end and watching them sink, but could we have used them a little bit more? Should we be bringing Luke Shaw back in sometimes? I know we've got to take time with Brandon Williams, but he's clearly shown he's better than Luke Shaw at the moment. Should we be dropping him sometimes as well? So I think there are questions, and you could be disappointed with some things regarding the players and the treatment of players. But I think the players that we've actually got and the ones that we'd want to keep, you'd have to be happy for what Ollie's done with them. And I think, I think Jacob's a regular on the show, so I like Jacob. He says Wan-Bissaka's crossing technique is poor. I think he can improve in the final third. But then he goes on to say Wan-Bissaka and Martial are so ridiculously overrated. And I find that kind of, I'm not sure what you were saying about Rashford earlier on in the season, but I imagine you might have been saying similar about Rashford. And it's like, with these players, you've got to be careful, in terms of how you're coming out, it's fucking awful and that. Martial has had a poor month. January wasn't a great month for him at all. I think he only had 1 goal in that month. And his performances all round weren't really great. But you look at his importance to the team before the new year, when we were without him and when we were with him, the contrast in the performance of the team and the performance of Marcus Rashford was completely different. And I think there has been signs of improvement in his game. Needs that consistency, and maybe he would have been helped with a little bit of competition or a little bit of whatever. But yes, he has to take some personal responsibility. But I just think we go over the top sometimes. Over the top. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's not overrated. Martial's not over. Who rates them that highly anyway? I think they're very good players coming through, and in the right squad with the right players around them. Martial's not going to do it all on his own. Rashford's not going to do it all on his own. They have to be part of a fully functioning squad. And it would have been interesting to see how many more goals they would have had between Martial, Rashford, Mason Greenwood, had we had Pogba, and I say McTominay, Fernandes for the whole season. We haven't. Inner soul says Martial needs Rashford. I think we've seen both of them kind of flourish of each other now. You can't rely on one player to be playing well. You can't rely on one player to be helping you play well. It's just simple as that. You can't be doing it. But what I will say is, what that shows you is the quality of player around them will help bring the best out of them. Whether that's Martial for Rashford or Rashford for Martial or other players, better quality players around them will bring the better out of them. Ollie is going on fitness and being ruthless on the break first. Once that's satisfactory, he'll bring in new players. Then on to the next level. It's a process that needs time, says Thomas Clark. I agree. When you take as many players as you have off him, he does need time, but he needs to earn that time as well. And ultimately, this is something that I wanted to speak about as we progress through the show. Ultimately, at the moment where we are, look, I'll bring up my grade now actually, just so we've got it out there, because then I think a lot of what needs to come next will relate to that, because some of you might be surprised by my grade, some of you might think it's too harsh, but my grade at the moment is a D, and I'll tell you why. If you're on a D grade, a little bit of work could push you onto a very good grade, and a little bit of a disaster, a little bit of slacking could really take you down a lot. And that's why I think at the moment, if I was to grade this season, as we would on a school exam, A to F, or U if you wanna, I would rate it as a D. Because if you was to come out and say, right, where do you think United would have been? I would have said we would be battling for top 4, which are kind of in a fight for that, and we'd be hopefully progressing well in the cup competitions. Now, that's where I think, that's where we are. So in terms of that, it's par for course. We're par for course in terms of where we are as competitions and all that goes. The problem's been, we would have been cruising in 4th if we had won some of those games that we should have been winning. And that's where the frustration comes from. We should have been beating Everton, Villa at home. We should have been beating Watford away, who were rooted to the bottom of the table. That there alone is 7 points. Crystal Palace at home, 10 points. Now, I know every single team in the league can do this and complain about points that they've dropped and all this kind of stuff and say, if we had this point, we'd be here and there. But those are games. Those ain't games against Spurs away and Liverpool. These are games that Manchester United should be winning. Manchester United should be winning. And we didn't. So if we win those, and I think that comes down to the manager, that also comes down to the players at his disposal, all that kind of stuff. If we win those, we're cruising in fourth. And that is probably a C or a B. Because we're a little bit, we would be feeling a lot more positive. But at the moment, I'd say D. Edging on a D minus. Glenn says D plus. Gunshi says D. Lee says C minus. Any more comments? I think at the moment, look, Jacob's saying, I'm deadly serious, we are shy. I think we're very bad at the moment. When you look at it, we've got De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof, Twanzebe, Brandon Williams, McTominay, Fred, Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, like Daniel James. We've got 15 players maybe that you'd like to see in a squad. We're still 5 to 8 players from a very, very good squad, I'd say. And you look at that and you think, I think you can't put old expectations on this team as it is now. And that's why I don't know, look, with a D, like I said, if Ali gets some bad results, we get knocked out of the cup, we have some more bad results in the league, we drop down the table, we move away from fourth, we're nowhere near it, he could lose his job, and rightly so, and you're looking at the end of the season at an E or an F. But at the same hand, we could keep progressing in the Europa League, potentially win that, keep going in the league, finish 5th, 6th, 4th, somewhere like that, and you'd think C if we got a trophy. But it's the season's teetering on the edge at the moment. It's teetering on the edge. And in terms of Ollie's own position, that is the same. It's teetering on the edge. But I think when you step back away from this season and you think, right, what did we need to do to progress? What did we need to do? We needed to get rid of players, change what was going on within the squad, the reasons why players were there, the kind of attitudes that we're building in the squad, change the makeup of the squad. We've been able to strip back a lot of it so we can rebuild on it. And some of the players that are there at the moment, most of them you'd think you'd like to stick around. There's a few like Jones, Rojo, who's out on loan, a few others that you'd think, Matic, etc., that will move on. Okay, fine, they've gone. But a lot of the players you'd like to think you can keep there and build on them, improve on them and build on them. And you do that and you potentially got a foundations for a good team. And that's why I think Ollie's taken a lot of the short-term pain for the next manager. Because I personally think he'll eventually lose his job. I don't think he's the man to take us forward and win us trophies and do all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's the man to do that. I think if he was, at the very least, we'd be sitting fourth at the moment. Because I do think results are important. But at the same time, I do think he can argue that he deserves time. And that's why by the end of the season, we'll be in a position to really evaluate whether we should be going forward with him or not. And it's probably dependent on a trophy or top 4. We shouldn't be looking at it like that way. We should be looking at it as the bigger picture thing. And I'm kind of feeling like bringing in a new manager, whoever it is, if it's a Poch at the end of the season, would have been better than bringing them in now anyway. Because you bring them in, fresh season, fresh pre-season. The squad's got a lot of players rid of it. We've already seen how poor our board is, how slow they are, how inactive they are, how long they take to make deals happen. So bringing in a new manager and thinking they can make that, because you know what would happen? Imagine you had Poch in now, yeah, in Ollie's. So when we gave Ollie the job at the end of the season, imagine we gave Poch the job. He comes in, he signs 3 players. We let go a whole host of players. So we've still got this squad. He'd be under the same pressure that Ollie is for his job because the results wouldn't be coming because the squad wouldn't be good enough. That's why actually getting to the end of the season, when we can bring in a few more players, get the squad closer to what we want it to be, we'd be in a better position for a new manager and to kind of have a fresh start at it, rather than coming in with our slow board, not replacing players and all that. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think mid-season grade of a D at the moment. Could go one of two ways. That could be an F by May, or it could be a B or a C by May if we win a trophy and keep pushing on in the league. But I've got a bad feeling about the league campaign. When you look at the fixtures, that, oh my days, the goal Di Maria's just scored is ridiculous. But when you look at the fixtures that we've got coming up, some of the fixtures are very difficult. I'm going to try to bring them up right now. So just bear with me one moment. So if you look at our league fixtures alone, they're quite difficult. And you're thinking, yes, we've got some games in there that we should be winning. Like Chelsea next game. If you draw that, you're further away from top four than you already were. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, it's probably gone then. You kind of need to win that game. But then we've got Watford at home. Okay, we should be winning that. Everton away. Under Ancelotti, tricky game. Man City at home. Forward to seeing what happened then against them at home. Spurs away. Up against Jose, who'll want revenge for us beating him earlier in the season. Sheffield United at home. Brighton away. Bournemouth at home. Villa away. Southampton at home. Palace away. West Ham at home. Leicester away. So you're looking, we still got to play City at home. Spurs away. Leicester away. Everton away. Like, out of our 13 games or whatever we've got left, they're pretty, like, a lot of them are difficult, like, games to be winning. Now, like you say, we do all right in them games sometimes, but we're already 6 points away from top four. Top four is gone. We're not getting top four now this season. 100% we're not getting top four this season. So the league campaign could get a lot worse. And that's why I think at the end of the season, we're going to be staring down the barrel of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer getting sacked. Because we know what the board will do. Our B team holding firm against AC Milan so far, says in a soul. Alright, forget that, because we don't want to ruin anything for people that are going to be tuning in a little bit later on and thinking there's no live football on now. What are you like talking about? So we're going to keep pushing on with the show as it is. But nevertheless, my rating is D. Let us know what you guys are saying. Jacob's saying I'm only interested in the Europa League now, which is an interesting angle on it. Winning that Europa League could kind of save the season, which is a shame really, considering how we used to look at that competition. Do you remember that? We used to think Thursday nights, Channel 5 at Liverpool fans, and now look at us and look at them. Jesus Christ. How the turntables turn, eh? God damn. Another season where I can't wait until it ends, to be honest. Watch this, the 6th, 7th on the trap. To be fair, we've won a few trophies along the way. We are so spoiled, aren't we? Super, super spoiled. Super spoiled indeed. But yeah, that has been my mid-season grading, my mid-season report on the players, the manager, everything concerned at Manchester United. And like I said, this season is teetering on the edge. Rab says C, a grade C, because let's be real, what did we expect? What did we expect? And it's kind of a fair point. I can see why you would grade it that. I just feel the games where we've dropped points in, we shouldn't have been dropping points in. And as a result, that grade drops down. But then I understand why we've dropped points. We appointed a manager that's out of his depth. That's down to the board. We've got players that are out of their depth. That's down to the board and the lack of action in terms of recouping players once we've sold players. So there's reasons why these things are happening. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in to AdamMcKola TV. It has been a pleasure interacting with you guys. It's been a while, so I apologise for the lack of action. We'll have a weekly United probably next. I'll do that tomorrow. And then much more content coming up for you during the week as we gear towards the return of Premier League action and Manchester United against Chelsea. Although it's like a good week. It's a week Monday, so still a while to go. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in to AdamMcKola TV. Make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing. And for now, I've been AdamMcKola. I'm out of here.